It's bad. Is that a surprise? I don't think so, but what is surprising is why it didn't work. We knew going into this that it would be impossible to capture the style and action from the original, a problem that's intrinsic to any live-action adaptation of an animation. However, the visual side of the production was by far the best part. No, the central problems with the show are entirely the fault of the script, and they boil down to three main things. Quick, what was the worst line from the show? Tough choice, I know, but if you ask me, it's this one.
Yes, Master Katara.
It only takes 3 words to perfectly encapsulate what I was most frustrated with throughout my viewing, which is trying to cash in on payoffs that haven't been properly set up. But what does that mean? How does one set up a line like this? Well, it just so happens that the original show had a moment very similar to this that landed quite effectively.
Well, then he better get used to calling you Master Katara.
So why does this feel so different? Firstly, the duel between Katara and Pakku originally ended with her being taken on as his star pupil alongside Aang. For a while, she studied under the greatest waterbender in the North, and we have seen her completely outclass all of her peers. In Pakku's words,
Katara, you've advanced more quickly than any student I've ever trained.
Including Aang. So not only is it more believable that she's reached the status of a master, but it's a title being passed from teacher to student, rather than coming from an unnamed character who speaks with no authority. Secondly, we know how much this moment means to Katara, because we've seen her struggle with insecurity when it comes to her bending. She was so jealous of Aang's natural ability to pick up what took her months to learn, that she places everyone in danger just for the chance to learn a real waterbending move. Despite this passion, she is still unable to perform a technique that Aang masters on his first try, and Katara takes this personally.
Will you please shut your air hole? Believe it or not, your infinite wisdom gets a little old sometimes.
Much like Aang, Katara is the last of her kind. Becoming a better waterbender isn't just a matter of pride, but is also the heritage that she is responsible for preserving. Failure to master waterbending would mean the death of her culture, but even worse, it would mean her mother died in vain. To get here, we didn't just see Katara have difficulty with fighting moves. We saw this struggle affect her personally and test her character's mettle. In pursuit of mastery, Katara has overcome jealousy, insecurity, inability, and bigotry. This moment is the triumphant culmination of an entire season of growth, both as a bender and as a character. By this point in the live action, Katara's education consists of 1 scroll and 2, count 'em 2, motivational speeches.
He's not a bender?
She's essentially self-taught, knowing only the most basic of forms, and decisively lost her duel with Pakku minutes before the invasion began. Hell, the last time she used waterbending in a fight before this was 3 episodes ago when she did this. She was never jealous of Aang's talent. There was no secret arrangement to pirate Pakku's lessons. She's overcome no flaw, and she's achieved nothing which merits the title of master. This moment seems hollow because it is. It has the appearance of Katara's arc without any of the substance. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated issue. Throughout the season, the show tries to cash in these big moments, but isn't really willing to put in the work to earn them. Instead, they rely on the audience already being attached to these characters and understanding their arcs. They know that fans of the animated show are expecting to see certain moments, and so they use the emotional high of satisfying that anticipation to mask the underwhelming impact of a half-baked storyline. Why does this scene happen at the end of episode 4? In this version of the story, riding the delivery carts was only mentioned as being Sokka's idea. They never laid the groundwork that it was Aang and Bumi's favorite thing to do as kids, so this isn't the joyous reunion of long-lost childhood friends. This ending, like so many of the other quote-unquote payoffs this season, cannot be justified by anything this show established, relying instead on the audience recognizing an iconic scene from the original and substituting its narrative weight for this. Criticizing the dialogue in this show isn't exactly treading new ground.
So, his son dies a hero, and he'll be forever known as a coward.
Well, you're just gonna stand there? What are you gonna do?
They don't navigate by sight, but by feeling. They sense feelings and react to them. Anger, fear, but mostly love.
Everyone in the village knows this story, but you don't, do you, young man? Just as you don't know that airbenders haven't been seen in generations.
And I thought, who talks like this, George?
So I won't dwell on it for too long. However, it's been so widely talked about because it was so widespread of an issue. Characters are constantly declaring their backstory and worldview unprompted, or providing expositional dialogue that might be useful for the audience but is completely unnatural to say for people who live in that world. Worst of all, and what I don't see as many people talking about, is when they irrationally change a character from scene to scene just to suit the needs of the plot. To illustrate this, let's do a little mini-game. You are the show's scriptwriter. You're now working on episode 3 and are having trouble deciding how one of Zuko's scenes should play out. Here's the situation. Aang and his group have disappeared after the battle at Kyoshi Island. Zuko is being forced to rely on the help of Commander Zhao, someone he distrusts and who knows something that Zuko wants to keep secret. One of Zuko's lieutenants approaches him with disparaging information on the commander that suggests he is ambitious, but has stagnated in his current position. Does Zuko, A, ensure Zhao's secrecy by offering a promotion in exchange for his silence and assistance? B, demonstrate the Fire Nation's culture of discipline and honor by immediately reprimanding G for gossiping about a superior officer? C, task Lieutenant G with finding more information on Zhao's past and monitoring him closely for potential disloyalty. Answer locked in? Alright, let's see what they went with.
Did I ask for your opinion?
That's right, option D, who asked? This reaction is especially strange once we remember that G is one of the soldiers that Zuko was burned and banished for defending. Surely they're not having Zuko be uncharacteristically rude to this guy just to give him a reason to betray him.
Unless they were an idiot.
What makes this sleight of hand so blatant is that as soon as G leaves the room, Zuko voices option B to his uncle. A nonsensical gesture that provides exposition to the audience, but forgets that this is supposed to be said to the lieutenant, as he's the one allegedly being disciplined. Another dialogue mistake that's littered throughout the season is taking a line from the original and delivering it with different words or in a different context. It's like a kid running an assignment through a thesaurus to hide the fact that it's plagiarized. But in this case, unoriginality is literally the point. Take this exchange as an example.
Tell me, how does it feel to be the only airbender left? Do you miss your people? Oh, don't worry. You won't be killed like they were. See, if you die, you'll just be reborn, and the Fire Nation will have to begin its search for the Avatar all over again. So I'll keep you alive, but just barely.
Intimidating, concise, emotionally damaging, and implies a lifetime of torture while emphasizing the hopelessness of his situation? Now, let's see what this new version is.
Now, Avatar. Had you heard of my name before your capture, or was this the first time?
Please, you have to let me go.
No. There are 4 guards, not 3, and both his hands and his feet are shackled.
It's not my future I'm worried about.
Really? I mean, I'd worry a little. Oh, you won't be killed. If you die, you'll just be reborn. We'd have to begin our search for the Avatar all over again, so you'll live. Though not well.
Alright, somewhat threatening, but with comedic moments mixed in, and more focused on stroking Zhao's ego than demoralizing Aang. This version of the scene isn't bad, but it's not nearly as impactful as the original, which begs the question, why change it? The characters are there, the plot is the same, why not use the words that worked so well before? The answer to that extends beyond this scene and speaks to a problem in the industry as a whole. These unnecessary rewrites are a symptom of the sickness at the heart of all bad remakes. Incompetent narcissism and... There's a common misconception that adaptations of the same story need to justify their own existence by making significant changes to the source material. That faithfully honoring the original story is somehow more creatively bankrupt than hijacking an already beloved franchise for personal and financial gain. It is true that some changes are required when translating from one medium to the next. Side stories that help flesh out a setting of a novel might need to be cut or combined for a film adaptation that doesn't have the luxury of hundreds of pages. Shout out to my boy Tom Bombadil. However, these changes ought to be made to leverage the strengths of a new medium, not to fundamentally alter the story or setting. Even though they could be touching on some of the same story beats, these changes often lack the nuances that were behind the original decision. Heibai's story wasn't just a villain of the week encounter to help Aang get his avatar legs under him. He introduced the concept of spirits as incarnations of nature itself. As the spirit of the forest, Heibai's destruction of the village mirrored the devastation of his home. He didn't attack random passersby as some kind of sick revenge. He acted out of grief and blind rage, presenting a concrete example of the consequences of an unbalanced world. And when Aang gave him hope and his anger subsided, Heibai's monstrous form returned back to its animalistic state, a visual sign that the natural order had been restored. All of that subtle world building was lost by removing Heibai's involvement with the disappearances and substituting Ko in his place as a generically terrifying monster in a generically fantasy forest. Sometimes it's not just a matter of what is lost from the original, but what problems are created by the ripples of the change. The biggest narrative mistake of this season was Kyoshi's vision. By foretelling the potential genocide of all remaining waterbenders at an ambiguous point in the near future, the stakes have been raised to such a degree that it is impossible to justify any stops or delays, and it immediately calls into question the motives of anyone who stands in their way. A common criticism of the show has been that it doesn't feel as fun as the original, and we don't see the characters goofing off and exploring the world with wide-eyed wonder as they establish their relationships. We can't have that because the pending destruction of the Northern Water Tribe casts a long shadow over the rest of the season. They're not meandering north to learn waterbending and see the wonders of the world. They're on a mission of life and death from the beginning, and it throws the entire tone of the show off course. And those are just two of dozens of changes where important character moments or details of the world have been lost. It is no coincidence that Episode 6, widely viewed as the strongest of the season, is the one that deviated the least. Ultimately, these changes are made by prideful writers who believe that faithful retellings are beneath their creative genius, and that their vision is simply better than what the fans wanted. A second season has not yet been announced, but I hope that it will be. Despite my displeasure with the writing, I thought the cast mostly did a fantastic job, with Daniel Dae Kim, Sebastian Amoruso, and Maria Zhang being my personal favorites. The fight scenes were almost always a pleasure to watch. The costumes were awesome, even if they always managed to be clean and undamaged somehow. And I can't deny that it was great to see parts of a show that means so much to me brought to life. But if there is a second season, I hope that the showrunners will correct course on the show's tone and stick more closely to the original plot. But I'm not sure how well they can do that, given how drastically some of this season's changes will impact events that are supposed to happen in books 2 and 3. If you want to hear more about that, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified on future Avatar uploads. Like the video, even if you didn't, and share it with your friend who's totally convinced that this season was alright. This is my first video essay, so please feel free to drop your feedback below. Thanks for watching.